affordable housing. There it is. For affordable housing and home ownership opportunities. Named as the HTC Advocate of the Year in 2023, he has spent over 17 years as a professional advocate and community organizer, and currently serves as the co-chair of HTC's Policy Advisory Group. Teena Ellison is the Director of Housing Services at Compass Housing Alliance, which provides affordable, permanent supportive housing and health through housing programs. Teena has been in the affordable housing field for over 25 years, serving people of diverse background and experiences, and it has fueled her passion for ensuring everyone is given opportunities to live in safe, caring communities. So, about the levy. Since 1986, the Seattle Housing Levy has been the cornerstone of funding affordable housing construction and operation in Seattle. Tonight, patients Susan, Ryan, and Teena will be sharing about the 2023 Seattle Housing Levy renewal and the impact of this historic levy as the single most effective tool to improve housing stability and equity, advancing individual and community health, safety, and well-being. Seattle voters will decide next month on renewing this vital funding. We really care about promoting everyone to consider voting, looking for their ballot at the end-ish of October, because we know it's also kind of an off year for voter engagement, and this levy is so important to us. So we're going to have patients give us an overview of the 2023 renewal of the Seattle Housing Levy, including the levy's impact over the last 40 years, and the specifics of what this 2023 levy will do. Then she will lead a discussion with Susan, Ryan, and Teena, along with you in our community, about any questions you have regarding the levy or affordable housing development. We invite you to participate in tonight's conversation. Please feel free to add your questions in the chat as we go, and we have plenty of time for discussion tonight after the presentation. After the conversation, we'll provide details on opportunities for those of you who might want to get involved with campaign activities and promoting folks to vote for Seattle Housing Levy. Patients, Susan, Ryan, and Teena, thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor to share some space with you. I want to make sure we had that chance to get the poll up, or we kind of did it. There you go. Okay, I was reading my introduction and missed the results. Nathan, do you want to bring us through it? Can you rebroadcast it? Yeah. Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you. All right. All right. Nobody, it looks like nobody answered. No? All right.
I just started the poll. Yeah, I just started it.
Oh, you just started it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We can come back to it as folks want to vote, go ahead. But for now, I am going to hand it over to Patience to present about the housing levy past and future.
Liz, thank you for the very warm welcome. And thank you to the campus team for organizing this convening. I can't talk about how important it is right now for all affordable housing partners to be stepping up and convening their communities to talk about the importance of the Seattle Housing Levy. So really delighted to be here tonight and looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have after this brief overview that I will provide. Just as I pull up my slides, I do want to acknowledge that when I'm in a room, whether it's virtual or in person, with our members on the front lines who are really turning the vision of our organization into a reality, to me, it feels honorable that we are with people who are every day making it possible to ensure that people have safe, healthy, affordable homes, or places that they can really call homes. And that is work that takes a lot of labor of love, but you're doing it every day. And we're really grateful for all of that work that is happening across our community. Now, pivoting to the presentation about the housing levy, I have been going around making these presentations alongside Susan, Ryan, and many others. And we're just delighted to get more of your questions and engagement on this work. More importantly, than most of what we're going to have to share in this conversation. I will talk through the housing levy overview, which is a grounding on just housing levy 101. I will talk about the current housing landscape, as you all are aware, but really draw some critical data points for us to be aware of as we're talking about this housing levy and its critical role in the ecosystem. And then we'll pivot over to talking about the 2023 levy proposal, just in summary in terms of what's included in terms of some of the spend plan commitments that are in the ordinance. The Seattle Housing Levy, just historically, it is a voter-approved property tax. We have had this tool in Seattle now for 40 years. So since 1986, we have had the housing levy as a tool. Prior to that, in 1981, we had the senior housing bond, which then became this housing levy that we currently have. So we were the first city in the nation to use this property tax investing in affordable housing. And that's why we take so much pride in the success of the housing levy. At any given point in time, right now, as we're sitting here, we have 16,000 people who live in levy-funded homes. So those are folks in about 12,000 homes that are rental homes that have been supported by the levy. And then we also have folks in 900 plus home ownership opportunities that are supported by the housing levy. In addition to just production and preservation of units, we also have investments from the levy that are critical in supporting operations, maintenance, and services in permanent supportive housing buildings. Over 1,300 units have been supported by this levy since its inception in terms of investments. On the right, what you see is a map of the levy investments over its life cycle. And I think it's always a point that people elevate to say investments in affordable housing only happen in certain parts of the city. But what you see in this map is the housing levy working in all parts of our city. So there's investments that have been made all the way up north, down south, throughout the city. The orange that you see here is a 2016 rental housing investments. The other color, depending on your eyesight, black or purple, is the rental housing investments that have been made prior to the 2016 levy. And then the green that you see is homeownership investments that have been made so far. Now, with all these investments that have been made, I think it's important for anyone talking about the levy to be really well aware that the housing levy, with each iteration that has been passed, it has met and exceeded its goals. So it's been that kind of success story. In the 2016 levy goals that were set, and we have 5 programs within the levy, you will see that across programs, we have exceeded the goals that were set. In rental housing production, we had set a goal of 2,150 units to be produced. We are 27% above that goal. So continuing to scale and hit above what was set as a bare minimum initially in terms of a goal. In preservation, we're 51% above the goal. In home ownership, we're 32% above the goal. So all of that really going back to how successful the levy has been in being able to meet the expectations that the voters set. We are set to go above and beyond in the homelessness prevention program. What you see here is from December 2022. So at this point in time of the year, we're likely getting closer to that 100% in terms of goals being met for the homeless prevention program, as well as the operations and maintenance services dollars bucket that you see at the bottom here. Now, as good as the levy has been, in being impactful in increasing the production of homes. And the levy works with, other revenue sources. You have the mandatory housing affordability fees that are coming in as a significant revenue source. You have the payroll expense tax. You also have at the federal level, the low income housing tax credit, at the state level, the housing trust fund, et cetera. All of those tools work together with the levy to produce an increased amount of homes. But as much as we've done all of that incredible work, the need in our city is greater than it's ever been. And I think I'm preaching to the choir here in terms of the reality of that. So over the last decade, we've seen an increase in population growth that continues. We've seen economic prosperity that has remained even with COVID being here, but that has not benefited everyone. So as we've seen that prosperity, we've seen increase in job growth. So we have 2.6 jobs that are being created per individual here. But in comparison to housing, we have housing units that are just not coming up to scale in terms of the production of housing that's needed to house people moving here. So for every 2.6 jobs, we have only one home that is in existence to support that population growth. As a result, we're seeing that we do have a gap in people having the ability to access homes that they can afford. Because of that shortage of homes, the cost in terms of rents for housing have continued to skyrocket. As you see here on the left side, rents have increased 45% over the last decade. And if you zero in terms of the comparison of that number to wages, wages have only increased by 8%. So those two have not kept up. It means people's ability to buy into a market is really limited in being able to afford the homes that we currently have in existence. So that's a number to continue to reiterate and be aware of. But that all has happened amidst an economic prosperity that benefits. I think on the homeownership side, you will see that we've seen a 54% increase in terms of home values over that same period of time. And that impacts people differently. There are folks who are really on the higher income sprang are well off with an increase, and then there are folks who have limited incomes who are stuck in homes where they don't have the cash to be able to continue to sustain themselves in community. Now, with all of that being a factor, it all comes down to the bottom line, which is we just don't have enough homes, period. And the projections right now by the Department of Commerce are that in the city of Seattle, we need 112,000 new homes over the next 2 decades, just to make sure that people are not paying more than a third of their income towards housing. About 70,000 of those homes have to be affordable to folks who are making 80% area median income and below. So that's folks with no income at all, going up to your baristas, to your firefighters, to your case managers, many critical people who are supporting really our social fabric who are within that group. So we do have a significant amount of need, and it means that every tool in the toolbox needs to be utilized in order for us to effectively address that need and close the gap. Now, I want to talk about one tool. I always emphasize that the Seattle Housing Levy has been it's been the heart and soul, it's been the cornerstone of producing and preserving housing, but it's one tool. Of course, we do need to acknowledge that if we didn't have this tool in place, we would be in a far much worse hole than we are in right now in terms of need. So what the levy in 2023 is doing is stepping up to the moment to address the significant need that we've continued to see in our community. It's going to be a $970 million levy over 7 years. For those of you who like looking very closely into the numbers, that is a 45 cents per thousand of assessed value. that comes up to $383 as an annual impact for a median home value homeowner. And it breaks down to $32 per month for that same homeowner. It is an increase from the $115 annually that we're currently paying, and it really is meeting the moment, as I've talked about, the housing need that we're currently facing as a community. Now, I want to talk about the breakdown of some of the investments that are being made here, and then we'll talk about the outcomes themselves. So we're buying significantly into these 5 critical programs that the levy has been implementing over years. $707 million of the 970 is going to rental housing production and preservation, which is a significant amount. That does get us a high number of homes that are being produced. I think the production goal that we set is 2881 as the number initially. And then it does include an additional 600 units that will be supported for preservation as well. And then the other bucket is the operations, maintenance, and services bucket, which is affectionately known as OMS. For US campus, you likely are very familiar with these dollars. OMS is an area where we've significantly not had dedicated revenue sources, and the levy has been the sole source for a long time. In 2019, we had House Bill 1406 money in Seattle, then become an additional revenue source for OMS. But this is one that continues to be critical in supporting buildings and supporting housing providers to really ensure the stability. So that bumps up to $122 million over the 7 years of the life of the levy. $34 million of that is dedicated for workforce stabilization. And that's a very new program for the housing levy historically. It invests in permanent supportive housing buildings to really support workers with career training, professional development, as these are the folks who are on the front lines in really getting people the support they need, transitioning out of homelessness, going through any crisis transition to a point of stability. And we think it's a critical investment to be made to support workers on the front lines. So that's the OMS bucket. And then we do have the home ownership bucket that also had a significant increase. $51 million is invested in that. $49 million of that bucket is for capital development. So it's going to be actual income restricted homes that will be created over the life of the levy. And then the additional $1 million plus is going to be dedicated for home repairs, helping people stabilize. A lot of our seniors in our community need support to be able to age in place. So those dollars will be dedicated for that. And then we do have $30 million for homelessness prevention. This is a lot of the emergency support that people can get just one emergency away from homelessness. So how do we really provide people the tools to be able to stabilize at the point in time of need? So those dollars are dedicated here in the levy. And then we do have $60 million that's mainly for administration, really for running the engine of the Office of Housing and making sure that we can deliver all of the commitments that the levy has set, and all these other funding sources that we have continue to support affordable housing production. And at any given point in time, the city does have a floating $30 million for acquisition and preservation. These are short-term loans that they use particularly to invest for acquisition opportunities that come up in our market. Now, this is a breakdown of the actual annual numbers. I don't think we need to spend time on this. We've already talked about them. But in total, this levy gets us to the more than 3,000 homes that are being supported and invested in throughout the life cycle of the levy. The levy proposal does work with other revenue sources, as I mentioned earlier, and this is an example of the modeling that we supported and helped pull together in finalizing the proposal itself in terms of how the levy will be working with the payroll expense tax dollars. So over the life of the levy, we'll be seeing a production of more than 5,000 homes that are being created by these two revenue sources. But that, of course, will be augmented by the other revenue tools that the city has throughout the 7 years. Now, I already emphasized the workforce stabilization program, but I think it's important, especially for this group, just to draw out attention to that investment because it is critical. Many of you have advocated for it for so long, and to see it be included in the levy is absolutely important. But what I will highlight is that not only do we have the $34 million invested in the levy for workforce stabilization, we also have $171 million that will be coming from Jumpstart funding to support workers in the 3,900 existing permanent supportive housing units. So it's important for us to continue to elevate that as well. And additional dollars will also be supporting OMS investments overall. And with that, I will pause here. I know that was a lot of detail to share, a lot of numbers to walk through, but it's important for you as housing advocates and supporters to have these numbers at your fingerprints. But I think what's more important is for you to talk to your neighbors, remind them to vote, and let's get the levy over the finish line. And looking forward to this discussion in the next few minutes. Liz, over to you for a minute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've had my head in this a bit and I still learned things. So thank you, Patience. That's really helpful. There's so much to this, even for someone who works in this industry. So I appreciate your presentation. I think now we're going to shift to a conversation between Patience, Susan, Ryan, and Teena about some of the real life impacts of the levy in our work. We want to make this really real for you. So I'm going to kick it back to the panel. Who wanted to start?
Thank you. I can kick us off and ask the questions of my fellow co-conspirators and Susan and Ryan. Not only is Susan Boyd the CEO at Bellwether, but she is also our co-chair for the Housing Levy campaign, the Yes for Homes campaign. So we're really incredibly lucky to have her commitment and all of the work she's put in. She also helped shape the levy task force that HDC pulled together in developing the proposal. So really excited to have this conversation. And Ryan, as you read, he's our PAG co-chair. He also is on the steering committee for the levy, getting it over the finish line and all of that work. So Susan, let's start with you. Can you tell us about Bellwether's recent developments and just why funding from the housing levy is so crucial?
Thanks, Patience. I'm also honored to be a member of the HDC Board of Directors. So Bellwether has been around since 1980, about the same time as Seattle started making big investments in affordable housing. And we are the biggest, we're the biggest nonprofit owner-operator in the region and the biggest user of the levy over the course of those decades, and started early. The levy has been in almost every one of our 35 buildings and our about 3,500 units. It has been a source of support for buildings that serve primarily seniors, that serve where we have small buildings for small households where there's primarily low-wage workers, for buildings that serve families, just a wide diversity of housing type in our portfolio, as well as a pretty wide range. They have, while most of the levy dollars are pushed to serve the lowest income We have used them to create somewhat mixed income communities that we think have this pretty powerful financial sustainability to them. We have, in some of our recent projects, probably our most, we've got a couple under development now that have levy money in them, 175 unit development in the Rainier Valley that has studios, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units in it. Also some really cool ground floor childcare space and administrative space for Muslim housing services that is not funded by the levy, but a really incredible opportunity to serve large families in a neighborhood that has a real need. We've also developed recently the first nonprofit developed high-rise in the city on First Hill, where we developed 250 units of a range of bedroom sizes, and in partnership with Plymouth Housing, who's a permanent supportive housing provider, serving chronically homeless seniors on the lower floors. So a really enormous project, high impact in the neighborhood, total of well over 350 units. And in our portion of the project, the levy was a catalyst for, I mean, it was of $100 million project. It was, it was like $5 million. So that $5 million of levy money really leveraged pretty incredible resources to help us do something at incredible scale. So the levy's powerful. It is very well run. It is not often that I come across bureaucracies that really understand what we do and really know how to facilitate what we do and really match the resource to the need. I think one of the prompt questions, patience, if you don't mind me just moving forward, is how the ways in which the levy, how is the levy maybe different from other sources? One of the things that the city is very good at is adapting the terms of the financing we get through the levy, which is predominantly very low interest, long-term loans. And they know how to structure them in a way that really makes this work. And without it, we just wouldn't have, we wouldn't be able to do what we do in the city of Seattle.
Yeah. Well, Susan, just to expand on the capital stack, I think you've highlighted for folks the importance of the levy as the citadel that really has the stewardship of the Office of Housing that's been run well. But what other sources are you having to tap to bring together to work with this cornerstone of funding for you?
Yeah, the housing levy is often the lead source, meaning they're kind of the first in. Many projects also have smaller amounts of money from the city from King County and from the state of Washington. Those sources are smaller. At least the state has a larger fund, but it is spread out over the state, so less of it is available to us here locally. But predominantly, in addition to the city funding, we borrow money with tax-exempt debt from big banks, and we use something called the low-income housing tax credit, which is a tool that was created in 1986, driven by the tax code that allows major investors, and when I say major, I mean like the biggest you can think of, like big financial institutions, to earn credits against their tax liability by investing money in our developments. And so coupling the levy with those two sources, our debt and those tax credits, we're able to have a pretty big impact and stretch that levy money pretty far. I will say that the federal investments in housing have woefully underpaced the rate of increase in investment from state and local government. Pretty much, well, definitely in the state of Washington and in our area. So it becomes harder and harder for us to squeeze out more federal money as we get more city money. But that is a major resource for us.
Thank you for highlighting that, Susan. And just to put another fine point for folks there that Susan is emphasizing, with every housing levy dollar, it's been matched by $3.50 of both public and private dollars. So it really is the first in line funding source in supporting housing production. Thank you for that, Susan. Just pivoting over to home ownership and bringing in Ryan to this conversation. Ryan, Habitat has a unique home ownership model. Can you tell us a little bit about how the model works, who it targets, and how does it fit in the housing continuum overall?
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you for joining us. One thing I should note when we were talking about, when we were doing the introductions, I should note I'm also the co-chair of the Patience Malaba fan club. So just to get that one on the record as well. But as a part of that, one of the things that I do want to talk a little bit about is the work that we do at Habitat. A lot of people have heard of Habitat and have heard about the work that we do. I'm sure most people, when you hear Habitat, you think of Jimmy Carter and you think of, who just celebrated his 99th birthday recently, or 90th? No, 99th, I think. I could be mistaken on that. I'm sorry. I'm seeing a lot of head nods, so thank you. We also, you also sometimes probably think of kind of the traditional single family detached home, right? The single family white picket fence, 2.3 kids running around in the yard. I'm not sure where the 0.3 comes from. But the thing that I would say is the reality is that's kind of an outdated perspective on what Habitat does, especially here in the Seattle King County area. We actually, generally speaking, the type of projects we do are things like duplexes, are things like triplexes, quads. We build condo buildings. We actually relatively recently built a 13-unit condo building in Capitol Hill with actually a really amazing view on the top floor. Let me tell you, you can see the Space Needle on a clear day from that one. And the buyer on that home probably would be valued at about, on the open market, would probably be about $900,000 for that one bed or that 2-bedroom condo. They probably purchased it for about $150,000. That's the kind of thing that Habitat is able to do. Our vision in the work that we do is to build a world where everyone has a safe, decent, and affordable place to call home. And all of the work that we do goes into trying to make that a reality, right? It comes from what we build and what we've turned into building. Things like I said, those condo buildings, also larger family style units. We have townhomes, we have ADUs, we do sometimes have a single family home every now and then too. But we build on top of all of that, right? We've been doing, and that's the kind of things we've been doing for a while. But we also serve a very wide swath of the community. Generally speaking, the one other thing that everybody thinks of when it comes to a Habitat home is sweat equity, is coming out and actually, working on your home as well. And that is still an incredibly important part of the work that we do. But one of the things that we're finding is most of our homeowners, most of our homeowners really are, as what I'd say, Dawa, who's our community relations program manager, says, we serve those who serve humanity, right? The people who oftentimes are the ones buying our homes are honestly the people like on this call, are the folks that work for places like Bellwether, that work for places like Plymouth, that works for places like, like Compass, that work for places like so many other different people that work to serve our community. They're the people who are our home health aides. They're the nurses who just started here. They're the teachers who just found a job and moved to our communities. And oftentimes those are the folks that are pushed out. Oftentimes those are the folks who come and that help make our city run. And they're the ones who can't find a place to live as well, just as much as everybody else. So we're actually, the reason why we do this work really is to build that world where everyone has a safe, decent, affordable place to call home. Now, why does this matter when it comes to the Seattle Housing Levy? The reality is because without the Seattle Housing Levy, we couldn't do our jobs. We wouldn't be able to build the homes that we build today. We wouldn't be able to build the 58-unit condo building that we're building off of MLK, right there, 2 blocks away from the Columbia City light rail line. There's going to be 58 families that'll have a home because of things like the Seattle Housing Levy. It is people like Lachelle, who is an amazing woman, overcame homelessness, overcame being a single mother, continues to put her family first every step of the way, is a bus driver today for King County Metro, is an amazing woman. She owns her home today because of investments that the Seattle Housing Levy made. And it's people like that. And let me tell you, I have story after story after story, which some of them I'll probably tell a little later, of all of these people who benefit from the Seattle Housing Levy and who have benefited from it to this day. By renewing the Seattle Housing Levy, we create the opportunity to make more and more and more of these types of homes, to be able to help move people along the housing continuum so they're not just stuck in one spot and, I have to sit here in this rent controlled home if you're lucky enough to even have one of those, or to continue suffering through increased rates on your rent going up and up and up. Home ownership provides an opportunity to put roots there. And that home ownership opportunity is created by the Seattle Housing Levy. Susan talked a little bit about the funding stack earlier and about how there's all kinds of different things that you need in order to make housing work. One of the things that with home ownership, we're really lucky to a certain degree is sometimes the Seattle Housing Levy alone is enough to be able to make us get the rest of it done. We've done projects where the Seattle Housing Levy alone, plus the money that we're able to raise individually and the money that the home buyers bring in to be able to help buy that home, is enough to build all of those homes that we need. But if we don't have the Seattle Housing Levy, all of that goes away, which is why it's so critically important that we get involved and that we do this and that we participate. I hope I answered the question. I sometimes get carried away, in case you couldn't tell.
I thought you did an outstanding job, Ryan. And just emphasizing for folks that the 58 unit condominium building that Habitat has been able to produce, that's the example of the vision of the work that you're emphasizing, Ryan, and the work that we need to continue to see. And without the levy, all of that is not possible. So thank you for highlighting that. The other beautiful aspect of the levy investments is that we're investing across the housing continuum. You've had the home ownership piece being emphasized by Ryan. Susan talked about the developments that Bellwether does, a lot of workforce production. Now we want to pivot to talking about permanent supportive housing. And Teena, if you can tee us up by telling us what permanent supportive housing is and how the housing levy works and helps PSH. And we are not hearing you at all. No.
We even did a tech practice, everyone. We swear.
Oh,
There you are.
is it not?
Yes.
Now it's working?
Yes, now
Okay.
it's working.
Who knows what the heck, right? So anyways, what I was saying is it's so awesome to be in a room with such brilliant people. I always leave these kinds of spaces better than when I arrived. So I appreciate that. So permanent supportive housing is permanent housing. People have a lease, just like everybody else who rents, but we provide services. So our mission at Compass is that we provide, and develop essential services and affordable housing for people who have experienced homelessness, people who've been living in extreme poverty. Most of our units, the majority of them, are for people who are 30% or below area median income, and the other half around 50%. We have a couple of 60% units, but not too many. And PSH is really about housing folks who often have experienced homelessness and long-term homelessness, chronic homelessness, have disabilities often, and just have barriers, right? So lots of people have barriers to accessing housing. If I don't know if everyone knows, but like if you have an eviction on your record, it never goes away. You can get a criminal charge expunged off of your record, but an eviction never leaves your credit report. It lasts forever. And that's enough of a legal reason for a landlord to just not rent to you. And so we often are housing people who've experienced many barriers to obtaining housing. So PSH is usually a low barrier housing, access to housing that we provide. And the other important part is the essential services. So on-site case management and partnering with community based organizations as well.
Thank you, Teena, for that. We've heard over and over, and this has been ongoing, about the workforce challenges that housing providers have had to deal with, just the shortage in staff, the turnover that continues. But can you tell us about some of the staffing challenges and how this levy can help? I know I covered some of that funding piece, but if you could elucidate on some of the critical ways that the levy can help support.
Well, the levy, especially when you spoke about the OMS dollars, right? So the OMS dollars help with operations, maintenance, and services. I think Susan, thank you. You spoke so eloquently to how the levy addresses development and supports development of new properties. But for us with PSH, when we get these dollars, when we're housing people who really can only pay 30% of their income to rent, and most of them have little to no income, then these levy dollars help to offset the cost of operating the building itself. And that's critical because you still got to pay the water bill. The city still wants the light bill paid. You still have, other expenses just, to operate. And we need to be able to provide quality homes so that we can impact people's quality of life while they're living in our housing. The other piece is that just with folks we're seeing a higher age, a higher acuity of people as well. And so when you're talking about the workforce patients, looking at how our staff turnover and things like that, because it's lower wage jobs, and sometimes they've got to work a couple of jobs or they find something else. Our whole goal is that, staff can come to work and be fully present and feel like they're making a livable wage so that they can also go home to their families and care for them without running to a second employer and burning out and having to change jobs often. Our staff should not qualify for our housing. Right. I mean, when you're dealing with, our staff are skilled, they're educated, they're experienced, and are dealing with people with severe and chronic mental health, substance use disorder, and sometimes just the aging population, or people who, people don't have to have chronic health issues, but other just sort of mitigated ones, but they don't have a lot of family and support. So the staff become that. And they are a profession and they should be compensated. 50 years ago it was fine when it was some of us volunteering at from community organizations or moms and dads who didn't work, or churches, but that's shifted, just like the cost of housing has shifted. And we need to make sure that people have an opportunity to live with some dignity, including our employees.
Absolutely. I often say that the staff who work in buildings are really the people who are turning the buildings into homes, right? They're supporting people on a path and journey to stability, and that's really critical work that needs to be emphasized. But we've continued to have those positions underpaid. People are burned out. There's a lot of trauma in the work, and how can we support the workers more holistically? Because that's really important. We've seen numbers around this, if we want to spend a few minutes on this topic, and we'd love to invite questions from the audience as well at this moment in time. Jumpstart funding was invested last year to support some of this workforce stabilization. And I was seeing numbers just recently where, because of those investments, there's been an increase in retention, some reduction in turnover. Some housing providers have been able to move to a new wage floor of about $29 an hour. But of course, in Seattle, for folks to be able to live here and not qualify for the housing that they're providing, you need to be paid about $39.50 an hour in order to afford to get there. So how can we close that gap between this floor that's being set to this place where we should be in order for people to be whole in the work that they're doing? And of course, there will be need for additional revenue sources to offset that. But that is work that I believe many folks on this call are committed to. And with that, I want to close with a question for the panelists, if there's no question from the audience. There's any questions that you're seeing?
Not yet, but you can jump in at any point.
Okay.
I was going to ask my own question to to offer. I would love to hear just one story of a recent move-in, if possible. I know we have a little bit of time, and if Teena, Ryan, or Susan could popcorn this, or one of you can decide to take it, but I'd love to hear about people's first experience getting their keys, opening their door, maybe looking at their mailbox. Does anyone have a recent story to share? I think it makes it real. Teena's nodding. I'm going to pick on Teena, my lovely coworker.
I'm just trying to think of like which one, right? Like that's the challenge. And so, gee, like, because some people like to hear about the family stories kind of thing, but we just opened that healthier housing program and whatnot in partnership with King County, and it's for chronically homeless individuals. And just this older couple have been like in their late 70s, 80s, have been living in their van for over 3 years, and she needed back surgery. Well, you can't have surgery if you're in a shelter or unhoused, because they don't have a safe place for you to return to. So within about a month of them moving in, she was able to get her back surgery and uses a walker and stuff right now. But they get to be inside, and it's cold. And I don't know about any of you, but as I get older and I'm past the personal sauna era, that I get cold so much easier now. And just thinking about how they still have their van, but moving in, and they are so appreciative all the time. They still have some challenges they're facing that we're supporting them with, but they're probably older than my parents. And to look at them and think, these are someone's parents probably, or grandparents, and their health was declining rapidly in the conditions they were living in. And even though now they're just in a small space, like in our healthier housing project, we're going to be able to get them housing. And it just warmed my heart, because it breaks my heart that we have so many seniors who have given to this country in multiple ways that are experiencing such tragic living conditions. And they're just so cute.
Yeah.
He has his little John Deere hat.
That's lovely. Thank you. We have a question for Patience from Karen. What is your 30-second elevator pitch when responding to someone who is hesitant or feels like they don't believe that the results of the levy are worthwhile, especially given the high need?
Patients,
Looks
I
like
don't.
Susan wants to
Well,
jump
I'm
in.
just, I guess what I think that one thing is to understand where people like to give a 30-second pitch on the levy is kind of hard. If people are doubtful, you have to be able to kind of address their doubt. And if people don't care about the results of the levy, they may not be the people you want to win over. But if people don't understand the levy, then I will leave that to patients to give her 30-second pitch. If people feel like there's been so much investment and or you know, this, I think more commonly people think there is so much money being spent and they're still seeing this problem. That's a very natural thing to experience. And I think the, you know, what patients said is, you know, imagine the problem if we didn't have these 16,000 homes and all the people who are living in them, and the city's commitment to that. And I think the, you know, housing costs what it costs, and it is bringing housing that is affordable is the solution to homelessness. It's just, you know, time and time again that, I mean, the argument comes up, well, I mean, we need, of course, all kinds of support to make sure people are thriving in their housing and are safe and secure and taken care of. But if we don't have housing that people can access with the resources they have, they are going to be homeless. I think that is one approach. I think you got to customize a little bit depending on the skepticism of your naysayer, or if it's just a matter of ignorance. And patients, I'll leave you to give the 30-second, like, here's what it is. I mean, you did a very nice long version of that.
Well, Susan, I think you said it very well. There is no perfect 30-second pitch to address the concerns that people have about the housing crisis, because they are real. And I think the response is always more impactful when you talk about people, because what the levy investments are about, it is helping transform lives. We have over 16,000 people who live in homes who otherwise would not be in homes without the critical investments of the levy, and continue reiterating that. And we are in a far much deeper hole of a need now, that we need a higher investment than we've had over the last 40 years. And this is a tool that has proven its ability to help us scale and get there. We may not have fully addressed the challenge, but we have been effective in scaling those investments.
And between those two things, if that doesn't work, then just go buy them a hot tea, because you need to melt their heart a little bit there.
And actually, I see that NIMCO is on the line here. NIMCO is one of the campaign staffers, our campaign lead, in fact, and she, I think we have a one pager that we refer to. We have some really key talking points. So I think it'd be great if you could distribute those to your, use them and distribute them to the people who you think might be out there in the community talking about the levy and might need a little bit of facts behind them. Oh, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, sometimes what I've said to folks, because sometimes I'm not sure, you know, are they on the I just want tax dollars spent the right way side, or are they on the, you know, moral judgment type of side or moral motivation side for housing, right? And I think regardless of even your level of conviction that, you know, in the belief that housing is a human right, okay, say that's questionable for you. All right, well, then let's talk about cost to the community. You might be a person that's more driven by dollars and cents. And, you know, let's consider what the cost to taxpayers are for folks who are living unsheltered. Many numbers, national studies show that we find less of a cost impact when we house folks. Not only are we giving them dignity and ability to generate potential new income, be more healthy, have less impact on the justice system, on the medical system, especially the emergency medical system. There's also a dollars and cents argument to be made for not leaving people to die outside. And we know that a lot of the folks that we serve have been at the risk of that in their time outside, people coming from especially chronic homelessness. Folks are extremely medically vulnerable. We serve a high proportion of folks who became homeless or were on the edge of homelessness due to a cancer diagnosis.
Mhm.
How many people do you know who've been through that?
Mhm.
And these are the people we are seeing inside. And so I connect so emotionally with that. And I think that there's something to be said, I think, for getting at it from both angles, I suppose, if that makes sense.
Well,
Tina,
I'd
do
like
you
to
add
just
something?
add, well, I was just gonna add, Liz, like, because I mean, I think, you know, you're right. Like, people get really upset about why are we soaking in all this money, and I still see people outside. And I think it's also important to remind people that there's a lot of people we house and help who they've never seen outside, right? So, how do we impact generational poverty if we don't invest in breaking generational poverty? Um, And there's multiple ways of good studies about how to do that. But the first one is to give people an opportunity to live safely and so that they can reallocate their other resources. So they're only paying, like Patient said earlier, 30% of their income to rents or and whatnot, so that 60% of their income can go to experiencing other things. Um, when our staff take kids to um, Seattle Center, which is like 6 or 7 blocks away from their apartment building, right? And realize that they've never really gone there before. The Children's Museum costs a fortune. So, I mean, I could barely afford it when my kids were little, when I was a case manager, right? And so, and then also looking at, you know, being able to have experiences that are outside of their school experience. What are we allowing our families to experience, like going to a Mariners game? People just don't understand that those things also help break poverty cycles. And we need to make sure we're investing in opportunities for families to live someplace where they then can invest in their family and they can invest in their children, they can invest in their own lives. We've seen a number of people in some of our affordable buildings go back to school to further their education. What we saw the other day, Liz, right? Like, you know, over 40% of people who've been in our chronically homeless systems have increased incomes. A lot of those incomes might be benefit incomes and not earned income, but some are. But regardless, it still impacted their quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Our Compass admin offices happens to be embedded within our affordable housing program in South Lake Union called Compass on Dexter. And I love hearing the school bus come up and all the kids pitter patter off the bus. And I like to think about the futures they have that they might not have had, and maybe the generational poverty that we might be playing a part in helping them be broken. So really appreciate everyone's conversation. Paul, I noticed you had a question just before Karen. It was of a similar ilk. So if we didn't answer it, feel free to jump in again there. I want to thank everyone, Patience, Susan, Ryan, and Teena. I really appreciated this discussion of the Seattle Housing Levy. And I would like to transition to a little poll about going forward. How do we take what we've talked about tonight, what we've learned and internalized, and move it forward? So the poll is, what actions can I take to help ensure that the Seattle Housing Levy passes? You'll see that on your screen. And also, we are going to add a link to the Secretary of State voter registration site just in case you need to very easily check your voter registration status, or in case you know someone who you don't think knows their status or who might not be voting or who just moved. This is a good opportunity to remind them to get signed up and confirm their registration status. So I see votes populating here. I see all options being very popular. Be sure I'm registered to vote. Vote when I receive my ballot, which is coming soon. Talk to my friends who live in Seattle. I've just been throwing it out there on social media. Hey, do you live in Seattle? Levy, don't forget to vote. All the things. And then getting involved with the Yes for Homes campaign. So we had the link there a little bit up in the chat. But we could really use your help. This is an off year for voting. And really, we know that when we turn out to vote, especially with our very lovely, easy ballot system, low barrier, that we tend to see success with levies passing. So we know how important getting the vote out is. So before we finally close, this navigates. Patients, Ryan and Susan will provide details on opportunities for those who might want to get involved with the ongoing campaign activities. So let's see. We are also adding a Compass's contact us info, and the Yes for Campaigns link is in the chat as well. Nathan, you've dropped that in. Patients and Ryan and Susan, in terms of getting involved with campaign, is there anything you'd like to share?
Well, the Yes for Homes webpage has been posted, but I want to invite Nimco just to say hello to all of you. Nimco is our campaign director who has been working with us and really driving this work with a strong steering committee and working towards getting over the finish line.
I think she had to step away.
Okay. Well, she had to step away, but reach out to Nimco. I think she did post her email in the chat here. It's nimco@yesforhomes.org, and ways for you to get involved. I think Liz said it well. The most important one, you've got to vote. Second one, talk to your neighbors, talk to as many people to vote alongside you. I think Susan has the signs, the yard signs there.
If you need one and you live in South Seattle, shoot me a note. I've got some.
There you go.
And then I'd also throw in there another thing that you can do is help us get the Seattle Housing Levy renewed by volunteering to join us at one of our phone banks or our text banks that we have going on. I know I just threw a link in the chat there on where you can go to sign up for some of the ones that Habitat has been coordinating, but there are a number of different options. Click on those, get involved, sign up. You know, we're looking forward to hopefully seeing the Seattle Housing Levy renewed in November, but it's going to take everybody's help. We need you to come out. We need you to make the phone calls. We need you to talk to your neighbors. We need you to do all of those things and more to help us get this levy across the finish line. So please make sure you sign up today and get involved today.
And you can host phone banks too with your neighbors and be sure to help everybody get the word out more effectively. And I will close with this, Liz, as I hand back over to you, that it's important for us to always know that the most effective way to address homelessness is affordable housing. We need more housing in order to effectively address homelessness. And this levy gets us to a place where we're increasing the amount of affordable housing that we can have in our ecosystem. But not only are we doing that, we're bringing alongside critical wraparound services that people need to get to a point of stability. We're also providing opportunities of a sense of belonging through homeownership opportunities that otherwise would not be possible or for far many more people. So it's really a tool that is looking through the whole continuum of housing needs and investing in them critically. So yes, let's get the levy over the finish line.
And vote yes for homes.
Yes, vote yes for homes and for people, for our neighbors, right? These are folks who support our community, do work that we believe in, do work that Compass and Bellwether does. And we need a solution for them too. So thank you. Join me, please, everyone, in giving a big thank you to Patience, Susan, Ryan, and Teena for shining a light on this critically important housing levy renewal on the ballot this November. Actually, it's on the ballot in October. Ballots will go in the mail on October 18th. You should receive your ballot a couple days after that, and voting is officially open. So really, in these over the next 2-3 weeks are the time to get involved and get vocal about voting and the housing levy. Many thanks to you, our audience members. We so appreciate you making the time to attend and engage in our community conversation. This recording will be available on our website. It'll go out via email, and we'll make sure to share it via socials. If you have not signed up for our e-news, the link there is going to be dropped in the chat for you to receive emails from us, including emails about housing navigates, Compass Housing navigates. The next navigates will be announced in a couple of months, so please keep an eye out for that information in our e-news as well. And I want to thank my team members, specifically Angenetti, who led the organization and the thoughtful planning of this event, as well as Nathan for a heavy amount of communications and tech support, and then the support of the rest of my lovely team. John and Sydney and everybody who works so hard to make sure that our vision of everyone living in a safe, caring community could come to fruition. So with that, we'll conclude tonight's event. Thanks again, and have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.